Welcome to the Two-Way Street podcast with Rick Harris of Work Boot Consulting and Rob Berry of St. Louis Bath and Renovations. Our aim is to bridge the gap between contractors and consumers. Remember, communication is always a two-way street.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the Two-Way Street podcast. I'm Robert Berry and my good friend Rick Harris on the other end of the line here. And today we're going to be talking about LED light bulbs.
Oh,
Why would you guys care that we're going to be talking about LED light bulbs? Because what's on the box of when we bought these light bulbs? I'm not going to give it away yet. We were sold this bill of goods to buy some LED light bulbs, and they last 40,000 hours, and they're good. Except an incandescent bulb was 20 cents, 50 cents at the time, and an LED light bulb was 10 times the cost. Why would I do that? Well, Rob, because it's a no-brainer. It saves energy, and it does this, it does that, and it lasts 40,000 hours. What happens when it doesn't last 40,000 hours, like half of the LED bulbs I've ever bought? And we all have had buyer's remorse. We hired the wrong contractor. We didn't, or maybe as a consumer, you know what? We really should have spent 15,000 instead of 10,000. Or, to get that better thing. And that may not be an exact parallel, but buyer's remorse is what we're talking about here. And how do we avoid that? Rick, what do you think about buyer's remorse?
oh, yeah. There's so many times when I've had buyer's remorse, and a lot of the times it is that decision I've made where I haven't done my due diligence.
See, I remember a couple of your stories about the buyer's remorse. You had a haircut, the fence, and there was a restaurant story in there.
Yeah. Where you come out of there and you're kind of mad at yourself. It's just like, oh man, particularly when you have done your due diligence. If you haven't done your due diligence, checking everything out, it's like, well, I deserve this. But if you have done your due diligence and whatever experience happens, I get angry about it. It's like, well, man, I checked all this out. I thought I had checked all the boxes. Why did this happen?
Yeah, there's due diligence from a contractor's perspective as well, isn't there? Hey, you signed up with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You said you were going to do this, and you had to pull the permit. You had to do this. You had to plan. You had to floor protection. You had all these things. You as a contractor did do that. Did you do what you said that you would do? Due diligence, I think, is a great phrase, and I hope everybody makes a note of that.
Yeah, and as a contractor, I remember being that newly in business, and that's okay. And this is the thing about being in business, as a contractor or any type of business in the beginning. But we'll focus on contractors and trades business owners. When you first start out, it's okay to work for everybody. It's okay to respond to every call. But at some point, you have to start trimming that down. You have to make sure that vine that you're growing is growing the clients that you want. And that's when you start being a little bit more selective.
A new contractor is going to say, Rick, he's going to say, what do you mean? How do I get the customers that I want? What are you talking about?
Well, so first of all, the simplest one is geographic. You are too far away. And I know there are contractors, because I see it as a bigger project, it may be 60, 90 minutes away, and they take it on because it's a bigger project. But then they forget you're driving 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day just to get to the job. And then if you get to the job, what ends up happening, if you didn't get everything that you need, then you got to go to the supply house and those sorts of things. So that's geographic. That's the easiest one. And the next one would be demographic. I don't want to work for people who are 16 years old, 20 years old. Those are the types of things that you think about.
You speak a different language with that age gap.
For sure. Or you don't want somebody from whatever demographic it is. No, that's not what I want. And you can do that. And I'll get to the next one, and then I'll go back of ways to figure out, how to trim or prune, the vine of clients that you're trying to grow. And then the psychographic, how do people think? Will they see value in what it is I do? The things that I'm doing, do they think, do they value them the same? Do they value the fact that we're clean, we're tidy, we're organized, we're communicative, or do they just value price over experience? That type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So geographic, drop a pin right where you live or where your shop is, and then look around. How big of an area do you want to service? If you just want to service downtown, service downtown. You want to service uptown, whatever it is. That's the simplest way to do it. And think about what your life would be like servicing people that live 2 hours away. You could go out there and you say you could, maybe they're on a well system and you install all kinds of really cool stuff for them. You leave and then they call you, oh my God, you're losing half a day just to get out to that client. And maybe you go out there and there is nothing wrong. What does that do to your profit? So as a business owner, you're thinking, well, it's just me. It's not a really big deal. I'll just go out there and I'll just do it. If you want to see how profitable your company is, you have to track all of those numbers. So if you're doing job costing and you're going back and you're seeing, oh my gosh, I forgot I had to go out there another 4 hours. I need to be paying myself a salary outside of my business. Otherwise, you can't see how profitable you are. How much did that cost me? That's a cost. It's a callback.
Well, that's right. And if you're just starting your business out and you need money, man, you've already figured out, you may not be an accountant, but you basically are. You figured out, hey, I need $20 to fill up the tank, or that doesn't happen anymore. I need $50 to fill up the tank, and I'm going to spend an hour there, hour back, blah blah blah. You figure out a full day, and you know that if you brought home $200 or $300 for that day, or $500 or $1,000, whatever you need, you've already figured that out. That's fine. But as your business grows, we need to do exactly what the steps that Rick is talking about in some form or fashion.
Mm-hmm. And I guarantee that the vast majority of contractors and trades business owners are not paying themselves a salary, like a realistic salary. So if you're giving yourself a salary of $200,000 a year, and your company makes 600, their revenue is 600, that's way too much. You need to pay yourself something reasonable. And it can't be too low, it can't be too high, but it's got to be something that's reasonable. So if I have to replace myself, what would I have to pay somebody
That's
to
right.
come in and take?
What's the budget for it? That's right.
Right. So then you can see, and it's got to be in there. It's got to be part of your cost of doing business. So that's one thing, geographic, and that's the simplest thing to do. How far do you want to drive? The demographic. So thinking about who you want to do work for. Do I want to do work for people who are retired, have more disposable income, are looking to age in place? That's a demographic. That's a great demographic to focus on.
And those LED light bulbs are going off in their head right now, thinking, I had never thought of that. And what he's telling you, he is dropping pearls for you guys right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and this all comes from personal experience. So, say you want to, okay, what are we thinking here? Say you want to build pergolas in somebody's backyard, and they're the coolest pergolas in the whole wide world. They're high end. They're cedar. They're just whatever type of wood it is, and they're illuminated. They're just great. They're just amazing. And your demographic doesn't want pergolas. They don't want that. They want They're the type of people that don't like to go outside. They're the type of people that are, they prefer the indoors. They don't like the heat. They don't like those types of things. So maybe instead of selling pergolas, you take that demographic and you market awnings or sunshades, things that completely block out the sun. Maybe those are things. Maybe you build screened-in porches rather than pergolas. So the market will tell you whether the product that you're offering is of value, and finding the right demographic comes from thinking about your journey of people that you worked with in the past, whether you work for another company or not, or whether you've been in business for a little while. Thinking about who are the perfect people that I worked for. How old were they? What did they do for a living? That type of thing. And just really dialing in on the demographic,
Yeah,
it's huge.
100%. And if everything that Rick is talking about that perfect client, how much money did they spend? How old
Mhm.
are they?
Mhm.
Where do they live with respect to, is this a good part of town? Is this a bad part of town? Is it working class? Is it the bad part of town? Wherever this stuff is, where were your best experiences with the type of product that you sell? That's what Rick is talking about. Take that to the nth degree and critically look at that client. It's going to give you an insight as to who your future clients are. And when you do that, now you can figure out all kinds of things. But the most important thing is, why are you in business? You're in business to make money. And this
Mhm.
will allow you to make more money, whether that's more efficiently by charging more and having less clients, or by being able to charge more. Hey, man, Rick, I sold that widget for $10 and I'm really thinking that I should be selling it at 11. Well, guess what? $11 is 10% higher than 10. So you see what we're talking about. This is going to help you identify your better client with what we're talking about, and how to avoid buyer's remorse.
Absolutely. I mean, you said something there that made me think. It's like, what do they do for a living? Are they a doctor? Are they a lawyer? Are they this? Are they that? Or
Yeah, are they a
whatever it
ditch
is?
digger? Do they have the money to spend for what you do? You want to argue over price with people that really shouldn't be buying what you have?
Right. So you and I are a perfect example. We are not the demographic for home renovations or for plumbing or for those types of things, anything inside, or for painters, because I still do my own painting. I'm a retired plumber, which means I can still fix stuff. I certainly don't want to clear the drains if
Rick
something.
may not be should doing his own painting.
No.
I'm a
So
plumber. I told you I can paint.
but here's a perfect example. So I'm working with a client
Yeah.
who's an electrician, and we're working on his service agreements, maintenance agreements, and what they are as a way to get continual cash flow, and making sure that you're still servicing your clients.
Yeah.
So he was having trouble getting people to sign up for his service agreement. I said, okay, what is one thing in everybody's home that is almost mandated by law in a lot of areas, or something that you should have? And we kicked it around and we came up with smoke detectors and CO detectors. Okay, what is the code requirement for smoke detectors and CO detectors? And it varies wherever you live. And he told me, "Duh, duh, 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 duh." I said, okay. I said, who would you sell that package to? He's like, I don't really know. I said, well, I tell you. I said, you know who would buy them? I said, grandparents. He said, grandparents. I said, grandparents who have grandbabies that live somewhere else, they want to make sure that those grandbabies are safe. I said, how much a month would you charge for that? He said, $30 a month. I said, there you go. I said, I'm on board. I said, I'll buy 3 of those maintenance packages right then. And I said, so you could, that's a demographic, older people who have grandchildren. younger people who have children who still see value in that. So that's a demographic. Psychographic is a little bit more difficult. So, would you want to try and sell? Years ago, they used to be called Marley roofs. And I don't even know if Marley are around any longer. But they look like clay roof, European style. Would you try and sell? And it's high end. Well, let's talk about now standing seam metal roof.
Mhm.
Would you try and sell a standing seam metal roof to somebody that lives in a 600 square foot bungalow? Or would you try and sell it to somebody that lives in a 3,000 square foot home on an acre in a gated community?
Mhm.
Right? So the people that live in those gated communities, they're more than likely, if they're in the right area, that's your geographic, demographic, they see value, they have more disposable income. And psychographic is the way they think. They buy higher end things, whatever they are. So that standing seam metal roof is a pricier product. Not everybody in that subdivision or that area may and want to invest in it, but I bet you're going to find a whole lot more people in that area that think a standing seam metal roof that I can put in that doesn't have to have any ongoing intensive maintenance is a much better investment.
100%. Yeah, I think that all of those points that you brought up are fantastic, and I like talking about that buyer's remorse that we talked about, and how do we avoid that? The due diligence that we spoke about. Maybe
Yeah.
we should include something in it for the due diligence on the consumer side. What do you think? So that
Mhm.
maybe you as the consumer, when you were looking for that standing seam metal roof, or the plumber, or the landscaper, the pest control, whatever, did you check out that company? Did
Mhm.
you find out if they are they a tiny company, or are they a big company? Because by that you may get some insight as to pricing. Or are you going in blind? Did you educate yourself about anything regarding that widget that you're looking for? Or did you just ask three companies to come out and rock paper
Mhm.
scissors and see if we end up with something that's marginally okay?
Yeah. And where do you find people to do work in your home or your office or your commercial industrial building? If you're looking on Facebook and you're posting in a group, and I've seen it, everybody's seen it, looking for somebody to do dot 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 dot, reasonably priced.
Yeah. Somebody that's not gonna gouge me.
That's right. Well, what you're going to get is somebody that does not specialize, that they haven't figured out who their ideal client is. Where
Oh,
do
but
they
what is
serve?
that? What are they asking for? They're asking for a referral, or in the business, they're looking for social proof. That's a term that we use, and people love that because, hey, Jim had success with it. I can almost count on me having success with it.
Right. Absolutely. So if you're getting referrals from people that that's one thing. Hey, I'm looking for a good person that can do that, 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 that. That's what I'm looking for. Somebody who does quality work. But if you're looking for somebody that is, what's the thing? What's the question? The three things you can ask for: good, fast, and cheap.
But you can only have two.
Two. Pick two. So that's what does happen. So if you're looking for somebody to come in to do, a good, fast job, it's not going to be cheap. If you're looking for somebody to come do a fast, cheap job, it's not going to be good. So that ends up that's what happens. So if you're looking on these sites where you can post your job and you get other people to come in and bid on it, understand that those sites don't vet the contractors that are on there.
Nope. They take your information and send it over.
Right. You can't 100% trust Google. It will give you a sense of what that company is, but it won't. And when I say a sense is one of the first things that you need to look for with a company, in my opinion, is that if they have 500 5-star reviews, I call bull crap on that. Nobody can have 500 5-star reviews. If they have a very low rating and a handful of reviews, like maybe 3, that's a bit of a problem. If they're not enough and they have a low rating. One of the things I always like to do first is I go to the lowest rating on the reviews. Show me the lowest ones.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what they're all about. And more importantly, I want to see how the company responds to those. If they're arguing, that's a problem. But if they're respectful and saying, yes, this was a problem, we admit it, please contact us, how can we make it better? That's a company who wants to get better. I would personally take a company that is 3.5 stars, that is trying to get better, over somebody that is 4.5 stars and argues with every bad review that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my choice.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. And hopefully some of this info that we're talking about, these bullet points, hopefully that is giving some contractors or some potential consumers, giving them some food for thought, because we want to help you get from A to B much faster. Rick, what else do you think could help us avoid buyer's remorse? And I've almost got one other thing that you had me thinking of something with the good, fast, and the cheap. I don't care what kind of client you are, and probably most especially the cheap client or the cheap contractor that's looking for cheap subs. Even when we get an inexpensive worker, which almost never works out, by the way, or when as a client, we're like, man, I bought on price. Doesn't every single one of us want the maximum value? Aren't we expecting just to knock it out of the park for that? Oh man, we got such a good deal, Rick. I can't believe everybody else is going to charge me 10 grand and I got this thing for 2. There's something missing there. That's not apples to oranges, right? Or apples to apples. That's apples to oranges comparison right there. If everybody else in town was 10 grand and you got that thing for 2, something is wrong. Even if your job ended up perfectly and you've had it for 37 years now and it works great every time you flip the switch or you turn the key on, whatever, and it works, you probably still dodged a bullet. So every one of us wants good value, don't we? That's what I'm speaking to. Every one of us wants good value for what we buy. How do we avoid being too cheap? Let's say that. Let's get pointed.
Yeah, you don't want the Temu contractor, because there's the guarantee, there's a reason why something.
Did you say the Temu contractor?
Yes, you don't want the Temu contractor.
That's funny. This blanket said that it was $10 and it's this big, and it's not 6 feet by you didn't see the inch marks versus the feet.
That's right. Yeah. So avoiding the cheap contractor, there's a reason why something is way underpriced. So if you're pulling in quotes and you're getting 11,000, 10,000, and 4,000, that's the $4,000 one is a giant red flag. So there are.
But Rick, I've only got 4,000 to spend. Why should that be a giant red flag to me?
Because you don't have a realistic idea of what a realistic budget should be for that thing.
And as a consumer, how do I get a realistic budget?
Talk to your contractors.
But those contractors, like my company, if I think I can help you, but I'm uncertain of a few things, we charge for a service call. We'll charge a $79 service call to come out and bid your job. But that's not a bid or just a bid. It's a quote. And we will come out and we will be exact with the measurements and the this and the that. And within 2 days, you'll have an email from us outlining exactly what we will do for you. You will not not only you're not lighting that $79 on fire because we are going to take that off of the top of the job, but we're now accountable to you because you've paid for something. You're paying for a service when we come out. We don't do those things for
Absolutely.
free, and nobody works for free.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and understand that fee is a way of qualifying your clients, because if somebody doesn't want to pay $79, they don't see any value in your time, and it's not somebody that I want to deal with. Thanks. Call somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that.
And what you just said there is if it's not number one on the list, it's number two on the list why we do that. But also that same client that would give us the biggest pushback, I would bet my last dollar that that is the person that values their time the most and doesn't want to give their time away.
Absolutely. And and I've had the experience. I don't want to pay that for you just to come out and have a look at it. And I said to somebody one time, I said, you and I are arguing over something that you haven't been billed for yet. We're arguing over hypothetical. What do you think is going to happen if we do come out and do the work for you? We're going to argue. So here's a couple other companies.
That's great. That's great. I hope you contractors were picked up on what he said. If they're arguing with you now, you haven't even started, what do you think is going to happen when if they get 99% of the job, in their opinion, it's done. You finished it, but they weren't satisfied. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, they'll never be happy. So in a situation like that, what we would do is we say, look, we're not the company for you. Here's a couple of other companies that you could call. We're still be happy to look after you, but I don't think we're the right company for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think we can meet your expectations properly. And you grab your notepad and your samples and shake their hands and walk out the door.
Yeah, you dodgeable.
Or hang up the phone after you've said goodbye because you hadn't gone out there yet because they didn't want to pay the fee.
Yeah. Tell me if this sounds like me hanging up.
I thought I was wrong once, but I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the ways that you can. So there's certain ways that you can select your contractor. Personally, I think you ask for personal recommendations. Family, friends, neighbors. That all isn't always the best choice. That sometimes isn't a choice or an option. Sorry, because you may need something done that nobody else has ever had done. It could be, hey, my foundation is cracked. I need somebody to dig it up and fix it. I don't know anybody who's ever had that done. Or my crawl space is a mess. I need it completely cleaned up so it's sealed up. I've got radon gas.
Yeah. So the sump pump actually works.
Yeah. So that may be something where you don't have an option. So you're going to have to do your homework on your contractors. Check them on Google. Check to see what's going on there. Ask to speak to some of the clients. Ask to go see some of their work. Ask for those types of things. References will not guarantee that you're going to get a good contractor, but it's going to give you a better chance. Because, I don't know how many references would be ideal for me, but I think 3. Can I go physically see the work? Even better, this is a really good one. Can I come out and see one of the jobs that you're currently working?
I've had clients do that, and I think it's fantastic. That was long before I met my good friend Rick here. Before I met you, and boy, there's nothing like being tangible. That tangibility. You can feel it, you can touch it, you can see it, and yeah, that's a fantastic piece of advice you just gave.
Yeah, and why would you want to go out and see how a contractor works during a project?
Dude, is it messy? Is it this? Is it that? And when we wrap this up, we're gonna give some bullet points on not only what we're talking about, especially for you consumers, but at the end of this on YouTube, it's going to have the notes of what we talked about. And I think I may be missing one, how people can not sit here and write down everything we're talking about. But we're going to give you some bullet points on on what we talked about and how we view this as contractors and consumers, because we're not just contractors. We buy things too.
Mhm. Yeah, so I really think doing your due diligence eliminates or minimizes the chance for buyer's remorse.
Mm.
And
Say that again.
doing your due diligence minimizes the chance of buyer's remorse. There's
That's so good.
always there's always the chance that something goes sideways or
Well, and
something.
let's say it another way too. On maybe on the emotional side of it. Are you the type of contractor that a consumer would want to do business with? Are you the type of consumer that a contractor would want to do business with? It's the two-way street. Are you good for that other person? Are you approaching them with honesty and respect? Are
Mhm.
you do you answer your phone? Are you on time? Are you neat and tidy? When you take your car in for the oil change, did you just take it four-wheeling and it's covered in mud, or did you take it to
Yeah,
the car wash first so your technician can actually see what he's working on and give you proper recommendations? And you see what I'm talking about. I'm breaking it down to the ridiculous, as my old boss John Farmer used to say. Uh, are you good for that other person? Best way for Rick and my relationship to get better is if I don't I can't point the finger and go, man, Rick, here's your 17 problems. No, I can get better at the things that I can control. And that's what we're talking about here. How do we avoid buyer's remorse? You can be a better contractor. You can be a better contractor tomorrow. Just do one thing different. You can be a better consumer tomorrow. Contractor shows up, maybe you got that cup of coffee that he likes, or you've got a water or this type of thing, and you've been honest with your contractor or your client this whole time. You haven't held anything back, just like you would working for your grandma. How would you treat your grandma? That's what we're talking about today.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Do your due diligence on both sides, and geographic, demographic, psychographic. So,
Love it. I don't, and as many conversations you and I have had, if you've said psychographic before, I I didn't hear you, but I think that that's fantastic. And I think everybody knows, even within this context, we know now they know what you're talking about. People, yes, the people you're dealing with actually think and they have feelings. And after they leave your job or after uh, you've paid them or whatever you're doing, man, they've got a life too. And how do we become well-rounded consumers? How do we become well-rounded contractors? That's the purpose of this podcast, because I want you to learn from the mistakes I've made as a consumer and as the mistakes I've made as a contractor.
okay, my friend. Any final thoughts?
Uh, Good, fast, and cheap. I focus on that. And and where do you want to be on that scale as a consumer? Do you always want it cheap? Really? Do you always want to eat McDonald's?
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah,
It's cheap and fast, but man, and it tastes good, but that's not what we want to have our sustenance from. And contractor, do you want to be the cheap contractor? Do you want to be really known as the lowest price? That's going to be the lowest profit too. I'd rather double my price, and this is ridiculous, but I'd rather double my price and have half the clientele, and I'm making the same money. And if that struck a chord with you, if that hit a nerve, send us a comment and we'll have that conversation about there too. But that's the same money. If you cut your consumers in half, but you've doubled your price, that's a very good way to limit the type of client that you work. That does not work in all industries, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm not saying to take advantage of anybody. I'm saying if you were to increase your prices, you better increase your service too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope this was good for the listeners, whether you're a client, a consumer, or whether you're a contractor. I hope that this struck a chord with you, and I hope that you take something away from it. At least, man, I heard at least 10 good things from Rick. You're a wealth of knowledge and information.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really do. Okay, we'll catch you on the next one. So if you like this, make sure you share it. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and keep plugging away. Don't
Yeah.
hire the team move contractor.
Yeah, I hope we gave you guys each some good value today. I hope you guys learned something from it. I know I did.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Rick.
Learn more about Rick. Go to his website, workbootconsulting.com. And to learn more about Rob, go to his website, sdlbr.com. Until next time, work on bridging that gap. Remember, it's always a two-way street.